Hello, beautiful people, wherever you are. Welcome back. It's underscore Gintu back again. And here we are. It's one-on-one live coverage. And back to the spot here. Oh, Isabella. Isabella. Hey.
Hi.
Bring water. Hi. How are you? Today we have Isabella one-on-one at this kind of the job here. And she's hey, Isabella, she's very strong enough. And today we are concreting, guys. And everything's so fantastic here. Isabella gonna be the camera lady. And she's gonna be representing to make sure that everything gonna be so fantastic here. Hi, no, I'm gonna be helping you. Touch the camera here. Say something. Say something. Say hi.
Hi.
Exactly. Hi. Isabella today is the one representing here. Let me help her. No water. Guys, we are just taking much of water from here only, and we are just using the fish pond here to get much of water that we are using to concrete this kind of the ballast. And also we have already arranged this kind of the round poles here to make sure we're going to be getting the fence coming out very fantastic here, as everything is just representing here. A little bit much of the people going to be talking about, oh, Gint, why do you withdraw with this kind of the bucket? Are they going to be having some of the cement? The cement doesn't have much of a bad thing, talk about any kind of the toxicity that can just tamper with much of the fish, but they are alkaline, and they don't have that kind of the acidity. And this kind of the fish ponds here, for them to have much of the good growing, they have to have an alkalinity which is more favorable. It's not fresh water muchly, because when we deposit inside there much of the cow dung, much of the manure, they have different kind of the pH level that are making sure that the fish ponds are getting on and growing very fantastic. So this kind of the cement, it doesn't affect much of the production rate in terms of the fish farm here. So that's why we can just use it to make sure that everything's so fantastic. Isabella, she's the one who is making sure that the work continues, as some of them are making sure that they're going to be getting much of the ballast to the holes where they're going to be bulking to the surface to make sure we're going to be getting the strongest poles ever possible. So also the work continues as normal. You understand there's a day previously here, much of the people came to they stole some of the round poles here, but I understand it's the way, and we have to make sure we're going to be subjecting ourselves onto this kind of the work immediately, without much of the things we're going to be getting heterozygosively or making things to be awkward or something else. So at this kind of the position, I take this kind of the time to welcome each and every kind of you, and saying about welcome to this kind of the channel. Subscribe, like, share as we get forward here. So already one of the gentlemen is here. Hi, mambo vipi bana? Mambo iko fiti. So he is oiling some of the ones that are not yet enough. Talk about, we have so many holes that are there, so as you can just get oiling and also getting them to the same holes that are to be representative there. So we are just covering the surface using this kind of the polythene, and after getting the surface exposed to this kind of the polythene, it will be so efficient in terms of making sure that even we are using even 5 inches, 6 inches here. This kind of the inches here, we are using them to make sure that whenever you're pouring some of the concrete, this kind of the nails here will support the concrete and will touch the concrete more firmly. As you can see, they are just representing from every kind of the side, and whenever now the concrete is going to be getting in, it will just be stuck at that kind of the position. You understand the concrete and some metals, it does very well. Talk about the expansivity, and talk about the contraction and also the expansion. It enables, because this kind of the side here, it doesn't have much of the trees. Talk about the expansivity and the contraction is high, and we shall make sure that everything that we're going to be using here, it goes hand in hand with the concrete. You understand the steel and the concrete, they have like the same expansivity and the construction whenever it comes to different temperatures that are going to be dissolving here. So some of the sections are so watery, and that's why we are using this kind of the polythene to make sure we're going to be covering it, and also some of the nails are subjecting themselves outside like this one to make sure we're going to be touching or holding this kind of the ballast that's going to be coming to this kind of the position, which is very fantastic here. So also all the position until this kind of the area, you can now see we are using a rope to make sure that this kind of the level going to be gotten here. All the lands here that we are just fencing, it's not like it's in a straight line. No, some or a plot can never go in a straight line. Let nobody cheat you. In Africa here, or in this kind of the area we are, much of the plots are straight. Nothing like that one. No plot is direct, and too much of the people are bringing so much complications, talking about this kind of the land could be straight. I'm going to be showing you something here, like from the upper section there, you can see that this kind of the land, it's not straight. From this kind of the pole here, when you see this one here, the other one is inside, the other ones are outside, so it can never be equal. It gets to your land, it gets to the other land. So each of you benefit from that. And for you to talk about, you're going to be getting it straight. You bring war, you bring mayhem, you bring so much things that are not necessary. Better you go direct the way you found the land is separated from the ancestral. That's what we are seeing here. So the river also is the one which is bringing much of the shenanigans. So even the river is not straight. So you go as long as the river is representing. So that's why you see this, from here, we have this kind of 1, 2, 3, 4 poles are so straight. When you come to this kind of the position again, it could go to the river, but again from here it goes again straight to the far end where you can see that kind of the man is representing. So that's why you can see things are different. This kind of the zone also have planted much of the trees to make sure you're going to be representing and holding this kind of the area. The impact of talking about whenever it's going to be raining and having so much of the floods, it cannot affect this kind of the side, to make sure that we are protecting the side. Talk about using the trees going to be outside or inside, like this kind of an area. Somebody from somewhere can come and talk about going to maybe this is talk about it's going to be called Liberian land. It's going to be called Liberian land. So we are using to plant much of the trees so they can just protect the surface area or this kind of the upper side not to be interfered. And we have left alongside this kind of the river area here. Some people can pass, or you can pass with some of the cows to the far end that you need, because you are not allowed to fence the whole Liberian land, because of sometimes it can have insecurity, or much of the people going to have something can just happen to the society, and they could just use this kind of the river in terms of prosperity, or looking for this kind of the things that are bringing much of the mayhem, and will be part of the subject to, or your plot might be the subject of this kind of the people to pass by. And if you have fenced the whole land, it will become a problem to the government. But it allows you to have a little bit of the position. Talk about the river up to this kind of the area. You have left an area that people can pass, or even a person can graze. It is possible you can just graze. That's why you see I've just squeezed myself inside to make sure that I'm just protecting this kind of the upper area, not to have much of the intruders. This side here, it has so tall poles here because of number one, it's settling at the talk about the bottom level in a way, like it's very deeper, this kind of the area, because of this kind of the topography. It's very deeper. That's why this kind of the poles are so long, and they can just be fenced until the brim point here. So if you be at that kind of the far end, or you be to this kind of the end, you cannot just jump. I'm going to be showing you an example. This is so deeper, but if it could be in this kind of the position, and you get the poles like the ones that are in that kind of the far point, and you place it at this kind of the area here, so this person who is standing at this kind of the level can jump. But the weight is so tall, nobody can just bear or dare to make sure that can jump to the other end, because this kind of the wire will be passing up to this kind of the area, and for you to jump, it will be so high for you to jump. Also, this kind of the trees that I planted, the Jamaican anko, they're still there, and they're going to be representing this kind of the area, and they want to capture that kind of the side. But much of the people also, they don't have to understand, because when you talk about protecting the land, not to have much of we can call the erosion or the collapsing. We have to plant trees alongside the river to make sure we are protecting the land, not to have this kind of the postcoms or intercoms whenever the floods come. It will just bring much of the mayhem here. That's why you see this kind of the trees here are represented outside this kind of the area, because I want this area to be strong enough and we can just do much of the things coming out. The fish ponds here, these were much of the meeting zone. I created this kind of a small hole when I was doing the agriculture, this kind of the field here, and I had to dig this kind of the hole to make sure that I'm going to be getting enough water that is just served from the all round fish ponds. I'm going to be bringing much of water here to represent, but also at this kind of the position here, I'm going to be making sure that I'm going to be placing something like talk about like a constructed hole that's going to be controlling this kind of the water, and it will be coming out using the pipe. So as the way this kind of the water is just flowing, whenever it's going to be coming excess, it will terminate or it will bring much of the erosionic things here that will bring this kind of area collapsing to the river. You can see even this kind of the topography, how it's looking like, and it will bring much of the chaotic here. We have much of the people are representing here, and the concrete is coming like safari rally. You can now see what they're doing here, and also the work continues as normal as it goes on. And I'm representing to make sure that we are putting the security. Security is the first thing, and I think after here we're going to be placing much of the CCTV and much more to make sure that we're going to be checking on the farm, things not to happen the way they're going to be. And I've said this is the starting point, and we're going to be getting everything done simultaneous in a way that we're going to be representing everything how it comes, and everything will be so fantastic at this kind of an area here. So already we have just finished from the far row, and you understand this kind of the land is a very good land. Talk about it's 180 by 160 feet. Talk about the length and the width. And it's a very large land that you can just use much of the things to represent at this kind of the time here. The fish are doing good and everything is just represented. And the way you can now fence, I can even feel very, very nice. Talk about decomposed in a way like even I can settle with no much of mayhem, talking about, oh, somebody can just intrude, can somebody do this, and everything will just be okay at this kind of the area. So all the angles, talk about much of the people going to be asking also about the angles. Talk about whenever it comes to the angles, like the way you can now see here, we are having the supporters. Talk about in different positions, and it has to be a place there to make sure that there's nothing going to be bringing much of them here. Talk about this kind of the pole, that's a corner pole. It has an impact to the society, like it's the one that's going to be supporting this kind of the corner wire, representing from the far point and this kind of the upper jaw, to make sure they're going to be so strong enough. And it has to get supporters from different positions, like from this position and from the other position, making sure that everything is so fantastic. You can see what they are doing here. So it has to be balanced equally, and also making sure that it's going to be very, very firm enough to represent the corner here. All the corners should be put this kind of the supporters, like 2 of them, and amungekata ingine uko chini ama iko tu sawa? Hii iko sawa? Oju wai inapita kutoka juu ivute, si ndio? Exactly. Fantastic. So it's now very strong enough representing here. So from this kind of the way, I think today we are concreting, and itachukua siku ngapi ndo tupige wire?
3 days.
3 days. So after 3 days, after concreting, it will take 3 days. Then we shall now come with a barbed wire to make sure that we're going to be now getting the fencing, or using that kind of the barbed wire to fence the whole land. And that is what is there. Also, guys, whenever you see we are protecting the land, talk about fencing the land, it's also to create much of the people to understand this land belongs to somebody. Also today, when we were just talking about the story of Murimi, some of the things that have already happened. There's a brother to Murimi also, who is the brother to Ernesto. Yesterday only again, he sold he sold a land very near to Dimwango here, and we were ever talking about how can boys come out. So somebody's talking about, I want to be selling a land for me to construct a house, and I don't know if you can sell. How much land will you sell at how much for you to get that kind of the money for you to construct a permanent house? You will sell the whole plot, but much of the people have never been told how can you sell a land to construct a house, which is again, you will lack something. Again, you'll have to separate, cut a small pieces of land for you to sustain the sustainabilities of getting that kind of the construction you're talking about here. So again, Ernesto, they have a very big tendency, which is you can never even talk to them, whatever. Let everybody do whatever is necessary. If you find like somebody can talk about, I want to construct, I want to do this, I want to do that, everything is possible, and everybody should do whatever is necessary. And you think about this is necessary, go with it if it's necessary. You can never talk about, oh, can you do this? You talk about, okay, again, give me that money for me to do whatever I want to do, and you could not offer this kind of the money. It becomes like now this kind of the people has to do it, and that is the necessary. But we have to protect our assets. And when you talk about, again, we're going to be selling. At the end of the moment, we'll be finding ourselves becoming squatters of our own land, and it will not be bearable to even pass through that kind of the person who you sold the plot to has constructing a house. You can never even pass through that kind of a road, and I'll tell you that, okay, I don't want to see you here because this area is private, and it will be that way, and it's your bare land. You will be a squat of your own land, which is not the good thing that's going to be enriching to this kind of the society at this kind of the time here. So already everything is just representing, and things are just getting good. So this kind of an area again, because the land is getting, it's reaching at this kind of an area, and I've seen like without having it getting to this kind of the point, I've seen the good alternative for me to do is to make sure that I'm going to be fencing inside. Leave, if it's a road that we're going to be passing and it was passing inside my land, let it pass through outside, and I've left a space like this kind of the space. It's a 3 feet from this kind of the pole to this kind of because my land is reaching this kind of the guava tree, so I've represented talking about is a 3 feet. Let me leave them a pathway. They can just walk and access to the far point, and make sure that there is nothing can just be brought at this kind of the time. Also, there's a controlling of erosion. The people who cultivated this kind of the land, they were they were plowing. Is it vertical or it's horizontal? Talk about from the upper side coming down, it's vertical, and it's not necessary. You have to plow according to how the land is, not to the topography of the land, because it has caused much of the mayhem, whereby the whole water is coming from the upper section because you have plowed direct. So whenever the water gets the channel of a plow, it comes one-on-one up to this kind of the stage we are at this kind of the level. So you find like this kind of the fish ponds are full of water, which is coming from your land, and also your land is siphoned all the fertilizer. Talk about all the we can call it the fertility of your land. It's just lowered to the riverside, and also some of the chemicals that might be used. Like right now, most of the people are using weeding. They're called about, how can I call them? This kind of the chemicals for killing the weeds in the maize plantation. So much of the people are using this kind of the chemicals to spray their own farms. In a way, like when those kind of the farms or those kind of the chemicals could just be got with this kind of the water, it can just come up to the fish ponds here, which is creating talk about the toxification of the river or toxification of the fish ponds, and you can find fishes dying because of what? This kind of the water, which is the rainwater that was coming from the shamba, it could just terminate and make sure that the fish, and you will be asking yourself, what has got my fish? What is really happening with my fish pond? Fishes are dying, and what's really happening? You will just not have any kind of the thing to talk about how it has happened, and you find it's something that you can just trigger and make sure that it cannot happen here. So I'm going to be digging here a little bit of a channel or a tunnel that will be controlling the rain erosion water that's going to be coming to the fish farm. It will just be controlled, getting to the far pointer and accessing to the river. That's the best way for us to handle much of the things here. So the work continues as normal, as you can now see thereabout. So they have remained with only 2 phases, and they're going to be finishing the 2 phases and making sure that things are going to be getting forward more fantastic here. So that's the best way you're going to be making things happening here. And they have removed themselves. I like also whenever I'm giving out my job, I always offer the job also to much of the ladies, because they here ladies, they want to make it happen. Not like the person who can talk about, I want to be sleeping, I want to be doing whatever. They have to work and make it happen. That's the best way for us to make it happening outside here. That's the way we ever make it happen. Keep it tuned. Much of the things are going to be coming to you live, which is one-on-one, as we're going to be making sure that the fencing is very fantastic. Already it's very strong, and I think we're going to be staying for 3 days, and we will be coming to make sure that it's going to be so hard enough for us to fence the barbed wire. And that's the position we are waiting. I think it will be on this kind of the weekend, as I'm just looking for the money to buy this kind of the fencing wires, which are called the barbed wires. Exactly. And I will be just representing and also showing you what you're going to be getting and achieving from this kind of the position. Also, one thing again, yesterday I was here, and we have this kind of the tree. Some of the people don't know it. This kind of the tree is called a neem tree. It's called a neem tree. This neem tree, it's one of the original neem trees around this area, and it's the natural one. So this neem tree, much of the people are coming to interfere. You can see how it has molded. Much of the molds are now taking over the game. Look and see these ones here, because much of the people are coming to get the barks. You can see how they're just cutting the barks, and you cannot control it because everybody's talking about, I'm sick, maybe malaria. You understand an neem tree, how it's so good in terms of the medication. Whenever it comes to the herbs, of the traditional herbs that we have, it's very fantastic in terms of the herbicide and the herbs of making sure you're going to be using. So at this kind of the level, much of the people, because it's not an enclosed system, it cannot bear leaves, because whenever it tries to bear leaves, people come and gut them out, and they cause much of the mayhem here. The tree can never grow. It's just disturbed. They are cutting each and every kind of the side, removing the barks, so it's very hard for it to grow. And whenever I protect this kind of the land, it will be so firm and good enough for us to have it growing. So keep it tuned. I'm going to be back to you in a short while. Guys, in the finish line of now giving the rest at this kind of the course of the day, we are now coating to the final coating of making sure that a little bit this kind of the tree can look a bit coated with this old engine oil, as even if they're going to be having some of the safari ants, they cannot attempt coming to talk about maybe eating this kind of the trees here or whatever. So we are now coating them a bit to make sure that we are now going to be scaring off this kind of the safari ants not to come and eat this kind of the trees. This is how we do it here in Africa. Or if this is the alternative, because if we could have used the cedar poles, it could be the way like cedar poles are not eaten muchly with this kind of the safari ant, but it's a lie. Some of the cedar poles some of the times they come, or they tend to be eaten whenever it comes to some of the maybe they are exposed muchly, or even the cedar poles. Sometimes if you're going to be using them, they are also coated this kind of the oil if you're going to be using them as the round poles to do this kind of the fencing here. So already the work goes on good, and we have now completed all round, and I think now the section is so fantastic in terms of getting out of the work at this kind of the evening session. And now this is the final touches we are now doing here to make sure we're going to be leaving it to dry and also be very strong for 3 good days, as we're going to be watering them each and every kind of the day, twice or once a day. It will be so fine in terms of curing this kind of the, you can call it the slab or the concrete that has been used here, more fantastic here. So already now much of the people now see there's a development, and also there's much of the things that we talk about security, a pattern, and that we don't want much of the people to tamper with this kind of the zone any much further. So it's only a matter of days, and we're going to be coming up here to solve the matter of fencing. And after fencing now we need like 3 rolls of wire, and they will be just good enough for us to use and make sure that we're going to be certifying this kind of the area, and the security will be preserved more fantastic as we need it to be. Because as far as you don't protect your own assets, nobody will come to protect it. Much of the people, how they come, they tend to come and cause much of the mayhem or do unnecessary, maybe to provoke you or to form much of the cause pumps of the manner. Maybe you be angry, maybe you answer them, maybe you do something terrible, so as they can just talk about, yeah, we needed such kind of the thing or such kind of the evidence at this kind of the time. So everybody is just now going to be handling the matters how they arise, and everything is so fine here. So already they're now looking so black because they've been coated. Now they're going to be drying, and the sun is so shining from this kind of the eastwards, and I think it's just for the rain. It's going to be raining very soon, because whenever I talk about it's going to be raining very soon, I do mean it, because it's now a rainy season, and also this kind of the fish pond going to be filled with a lot of water. So this kind of the fish pond has a problem whereby it has collapsed a bit. As you can see, it tends to be at this kind of the brim, but it has squeezed inside here. It's because of the collapsing, and also this kind of the land is so soft in a way, like if you don't preserve or you don't use some of the other alternative like gabions, it's gonna be collapsing. And when the collapsing is not collapsing and getting inside, it collapses sliding inside the fish pond. That's why you can see this kind of the big area that's covered inside water, and it's a bit squeezing the fish pond to look a bit small, but its original point is here. So it has collapsed sliding inside towards this kind of the space. So it has taken a lot of space inside water that's not required inside. It's because the land is a bit swampy and watery, and whenever it rains like this kind of the season of raining, it tends to collapse each and every kind of the time, which is the absolute thing that brings much over the chaos a bit to the fish farm here, which is giving us more of the work to do and the necessary extra work for us to do here attendingly. And also this kind of the third fish pond also, it has the same characters. From the far end, it's very, very fantastic, but whenever it reaches to this kind of the point here, it has collapsed sliding, including, you can see this kind of the small area here. It has already developed a bitter channel that is going to be collapsing inside. And if I tend to harvest this kind of water, this water is the one that is pushing it back. But if I tend to remove this kind of the water, this land will slide further even to the middle, making sure they're going to be covering large area. But when we finish harvesting, we also make sure that we do the renovation. The renovation is to make sure that we are getting this kind of the fish pond back to its original point. And getting back to the original point, we have to remove this kind of the section that has get in, which is a little bit of an island that is getting inside the fish pond here. And that is the biggest tendency that we're going to be doing at this kind of the time. This kind of the first fish pond here, it doesn't have such kind of the bigger work, because this fish pond also, it tended to come inside, but we are trying to cut it as small. Talk about, you can even see it has been cut each and every kind of the time. Whenever we're going to be doing the renovation, we tend to cut it small by small. If you cut it as a whole, again, it cannot regain like that one. If you cut it as a whole, again, it will just collapse from the topper side, again coming in. So for you to make sure that you're going to be sliding, the sliding stops, whenever it has stayed for a whole season, it has been so constant, and it's now strong enough, and it has settled. And whenever you see it has settled and the grass has attached itself, like the one that is at the upper there, the grass has attached itself. So you tend to cut it small by small. Like this kind of the bit here, we are trying to cut it until we reach this kind of the original point. This is the original point here. So when we reach the original point here, we shall make sure that this kind of the land goes back to the top after like a year or a year and a half. That's what is always being monitored here. So it will just be cut until it's framed from the far point there, and it will just come and cut across it. Even right now, you can just even go down, because this is inside the fish pond where the original point was. That's why it tends to be so swampy and bouncing. You can even see so bouncing, and you can even sink if it gets this kind of the water is not available inside here. a bit is a bit not so further, deeper, but it's so, in terms of security pattern, we are not associated to have much of the children playing here because of their security, and whenever they can just go here, like 5 years and talk about 10 years and below, it's so risky for them to be in this kind of the fish ponds, because they can tend to talk about, oh, I want to be swimming, I want to be doing whatever. It can be so insecure for them. Even they can just swallow, or they can just drown, and this kind of the fish pond. A bit they are deeper, and that's what we are now trying to do, which is the best thing. If I fence this kind of an area, I cannot have, there's a time I tended to have a case here whereby children came to graze and I was not aware. Then I had a cow, talk about a cow, was a bit like drinking much of water, and it dropped inside the fish pond. So the boy was trying to pull it, and the cow was a little bit getting its own also the moment to get out. So it pulled the boy inside the fish pond, and he had to swallow a little bit of some cups. And I was talked about, oh, Gintu, you have allowed much of the people to graze here, yet I was not even aware of that one. And that's when I abolished much of the people not to graze. Even if you are not talk about a person who is eligible of taking care of some of the cows, I don't allow much of the people to graze here. That's why right now I've cut all down the grass to make sure that I cannot again go to that kind of the contemplament of people coming to bisectionally coming to the plot and access or acknowledging whatever is not theirs, and talk about maybe the case going to be coming again to Gintu, and that is not very equitable to me. And that is the time I talked about this kind of the fish pond. Whenever I fence, I'll have the security also preventing much of the people or this kind of the young boys. Also, whenever you tend to have when you tend to have this kind of the fish farm here, much of the little boys, they tend to come and fish here, which is maybe coming to steal or much more. And if you get such kind of the young boys, they'll tell you that, oh, we were sent with the school or the CBC, because this curriculum vitae Kenya is right now proposing to have in Kenya. Even right now they have some of the KCPE case, I don't know, such kind of the exam called a KIPSEA. So they're doing this kind of the exams, which is tending to lure much of the people. Talk about, oh, go and bring fish, or everybody should bring small fish, others brings big fish. So you tend much of the young boys coming to fish from here, which is not the proper channel for them to do and make sure they're going to be coming out to some of the fish. If you tend to get them, they say that, oh, we were sent with the school. And whenever I hear about a school, I cannot do anything, because I understand it's not them. They have been sent. There's a time this kind of the case, it goes to one of the courts here in Kurialand, and a boy was caught. He was a 11-year boy. He was caught stealing some of the foodstuffs from a certain home. Then this kind of the boy was arrested and taken to the cell, and he was now going to the judgment in talk about in the court section. And the judge stopped the case and talked about what happened to this kind of the boy. The boy, what happened to you? And the boy talked about, I was hungry and my mother is very sick. When the judge heard about that, he stopped the session and fined everybody who was inside there. Talk about a $10 each adult, and whoever was young was fined at $2 in terms of making sure that I don't know which, everybody was talking about how is it possible, and we were talking about what is really going to be happening here. So everybody was fined. And why did the judge find much of the people? He said, like, this kind of the boy hungry. More so the children, if they're hungry, they can do whatever. And this hungriness is forced for them to do it. It's like when you are sent, like a messenger, go and do it, or go and deliver. You can never maybe compromise anything to this kind of the messenger, because you will be wrong, because the messenger has been sent, and he never intended to do, but he has been sent to do it. And maybe that was the survival value. And when this kind of the hunger got this kind of the boy, he had to do it. And that's why the judge fined much of the people and talking about we are playing with hunger. If the hunger has decided, whoever has ever been got with hunger and talk about you cannot do what is necessary. Maybe we have money. That's why you see much of the people talk about, why are you stealing? Why are you doing this? Some of the people, we are not advocating for stealing, but sometimes we are foiling to give this kind of the nature talk about the boys, talk about this kind of the ecosystem, the young generation. We are not giving them what is responsible at that kind of the time. So when I see this kind of the small boys coming to fish from here, sometimes I get one and talk about, why have you come to steal? They talk about we have been sent to school because we have been told like we have to get the fish. And I've got home and my mother said, I go to the river and fish. Then I ask, is this the river? They talk about, I came here, I searched from the top there of the river and I never got anything. So I had to venture into a fish pond here, get one and I go. And I talk about if it's education, sometimes I always tell them like, okay, next time come and ask if you're gonna be having such kind of a thing. Also sometimes this kind of the fish farm here, I always supply to the schools whenever it gets to the examination time, which is the biology practicals. Sometimes they tend to do practicals concerning a fish and excavating and talking about the fins and much more. You understand, whenever it comes to the practical session and also getting some essays writing, whenever it gets to this kind of the time, sometimes they come and buy much of the fish. So when I get such kind of the people, they're going to be talking about all the business how it is. And there's a time a Jamaican uncle told me one thing, like Gintu, never play with your assets. Whoever is playing with the assets, deal with them perpendicularly per unit time. And I got it, and I talked about it to the US. Whenever you bring the USian to this kind of the African culture, we're gonna be messing up, and that is not the good hospitality of coming up and talking about that's what you can do at that kind of the particular time. And I talked to the Jamaican uncle and I told him, like, when you're talking about ideal say kind of the person circumphonious, you understand much of the young boys in the US, maybe they're treated very nice or they're put in a position where they cannot get themselves involving with such kind of the things. And also you can understand how have you treated or how have you placed your fish ponds. I had not fenced the land. If I fence the land, then I get somebody inside. I talk about you have intruded. Maybe somebody can come and talk about, oh, you know, I was forced or I was lured with my contemplament time or whatever. Sometimes get me like, okay, this kind of the young boys, what can I do with this kind of the young boys? But I don't advocate for them to come and talk about they're gonna be stealing. There's a time I was doing some cleanness in this kind of the river, and right now it has become so dirty. So that kind of the time, there are some of little boys who are coming here to fish, and they were timing. Is there anybody? They have so long baits, and they could throw while they're inside the river. They could throw the baits inside the fish ponds, and I could not get why are they doing it, because they're in the river thinking about, oh, we are fishing inside the river, but their own aim is whenever this kind of the hook will get, it will tend to pull if the fish can get to that kind of the bait, and they can pull it from inside the fish pond to the river direct. And I got to that kind of the moment to understand how this kind of the boys are operating. But sometimes there is you have been forced. Let me say this. There's a time my father also came here once upon a time and got the boys, they are fishing here. He came very slowly from a different position, got the boys, they are here, they are sitting down and they have fire. And they were just removing fish, bisecting and putting to the fire, and they were eating. They were having only salt. My father was about to beat them and asked about, why are you coming here to eat? They said, we don't have food. We have just been left since morning. It was in the evening. They're now coming to steal the fish. During that kind of the session I was in school, my father was here, and they could just talk about, we came here because we never had food. The hungry I'm talking about here, which is the something which can make you to do whatever unnecessary. And also, hi, you are now leaving. The work is done, eh? Exactly. Thank you for the work. Thank you. So that's what we always talk about at this kind of time. And I say, whenever the hunger has got this kind of the young boys, and it's because of the parental hoodism. You can get like this kind of the young boys, they have been subjecting themselves to the river. Even this kind of the closed session right now, there's no more food. We can talk about we have food here, but people never they harvest. My friend, I tell you, they sell everything, which is the parentalhood. Not like a child said that go and sell this kind of the maize, which is whereby this kind of the judge, whenever he was judging the 11 boy in the court, talked about if the hunger was the thing that made permitted you to go and steal, I cannot judge you. I will judge the people who are here. They're the people who are messing with the generation. Because if the parents have the mandate to plant maize or do whatever, why can't they do the necessary to make sure that the hunger is coming out? Why subject the young people, the young children, to go and get the food or for the survival value for them to be in such kind of the position? That's why sometimes we say hunger doesn't have a defense, because always you have to understand you can never defend hunger or talk about what the hunger can be. A hunger can get anybody, and whenever it rings onto your door, you will understand what the hunger is. Much of the people will talk about this kind of the young boy is a thief, whatever, but what got this kind of the young boy to go and do this unnecessary? It's the hunger. And that is what I talk about. Sometimes you have to judge things according to how necessary they are. And coming to this kind of an area, I left a bit of a space also. Much of the people could not come and talk about Gintu, just did the fencing in case whatever. It will be like, okay, I have this kind of the area, it's going to be having some water, but it will just good whenever it is so necessary. I've left a small piece. It's only like I've not yet increased this kind of the size to be perpendicular with the upper section. That's why you see this kind of area tends to be down, and this area tends to be down, and a little bit of some water. But much of the people who are just passing through the foot, they have to understand, like you cannot pass through here while you are going for the ceremony. No, you have to pass here. Maybe you are going to be accessing to your farm or do whatever is necessary. That's the time you're going to be passing here. And I don't want to attend and talk about I'm going to be taking care of this kind of the people. Some of the times maybe they don't take care of me, and they want to be fishing and do whatever is necessary. Also, this kind of the water, it was exposed into a very difficult point. Let me talk about this. Much of the people, they were spraying this kind of the chemicals called Roundup, and they were, during the harvest season, then they want to spray some of the Roundup, so to make sure that the field going to be clear, so they can just do the farming. Much of the people tend to come and withdraw water from the fish pond, and also stare much or talk about this kind of the poison, which is the Roundup, inside a knapsack sprayer from the same point, which was causing much of the mayhem. And coming to talk about the fish can die not knowing. And also, if you want to identify the fish, maybe they're dying or something has happened bad, you have to understand or consider whenever you see some of the fish suffocating and inhaling the outside air, which is not necessary for the fish whenever it comes to that kind of the session. So this is the fish farm, and I'm going to be protecting it with all my mind, all my assets, to make sure that everything is getting more clear. Right now, it has reached at a point whereby I said I'm going to be hosting agricultural show one day, one time, and I'm onto it, and I'm subjecting myself onto it to make sure that I'm reaching those kind of the goals. There's a time I was about to go to Citizen TV and make sure that I'm going to be coming out with much of teachings to this kind of the TV, which is a national television, but I got a challenge when I was some of the people talked about, oh Gintu, you are terminated from here, we don't want to see you. Just they did unnecessary, and even they spoiled much of the name, which I could not offer or talk about how it could be. And that's the time I missed this kind of the opportunity to represent people, the young people, the growing people who have fish farms, and to this kind of the industry, and explain the matters that are evolving for this kind of the young farmers and what they are passing through to make sure that the living is coming to. But one day, one time, maybe this is the position for us to go and make it happen. One day, one time, we'll find where it's necessary. We are not going to be talking about, oh, we're going to be giving up, not yet. Giving up is not necessary. And what is necessary is what are we going to be prompting to go forward and do. Here, we're going to be now getting, everybody has got his own assets. We are now leaving the station to make sure that this is the remaining one. And I think I'm going to be using it where necessary whenever it comes to much of the time. This is the gate. It's a bit smaller, but I will just be accessing using the motorbike. And also, even if you're going to be having a car, it cannot come inside here. How are you going to be getting some corners inside there? So I'm going to be farming this kind of the land again, and also it will be now protected 100%, and I'll be having 100% sure, like I'll be producing much of the feeds, which is the right position for us to get some of the food stuff and to this kind of the panel here, and that will be so effective. So tutachimba mtaro, mtaro tutachimba hapa. there's a channel that will be dug here for water, and to make sure you're going to be controlling much of water so that they cannot fulfill. Talk about whenever I talk about time, everything is about time. There's a time we can talk about this kind of the water, it might be coming and filling the fish pond. When we talk about, it doesn't have any kind of the effect, it is water. Maybe you don't know the soil that was carried inside the fish pond. You can find it now at the same time, it's accumulating and killing the fish pond in a small portion. So Mr. Sigano is taking some of the gadgets, talk about like the tools and equipment we used here, and they're now getting back home to make sure that everything is so fantastic here. Unadai shilingi ngapi? Wewe mkechio once parachio. How much is that money? Mbona umeangalia vizuri? Umeniangalia vizuri. Nani? Saini sangapi? Isabella is here. The stomach is stomaching. What are you saying?
Baby show. Ya mtoto.
Baby show. The children. The court is very cutting here. How traditional it is using. I saw this kind of the court several years ago, and Isabella, she's looking so characteristically very nice. That's very nature. Hi. Today the women here, they are looking so clean. Exactly. Unasema namna gani bana?
Ngaza tao bwa.
Mura. Wacha basi jioni, si ndio? Wacha hii niende nilipe. Manu alikuwa anasomba matofali, nitaache mtigiwe.
Sasa ambe hano.
So nitakupatia tao.
Haina shida.
Hizo ni?
Hizi ni 3.
3. 3 kwa wakati huo si zitakusukuma hapa kidogo. Ama chukua. Kuna kitu unanidai?
Sasa hapo tutana siku ya waya.
Siku ya waya. Okay. Yes, hello.
Yes, sasa ndo tutakula vizuri.
Fresh? Siku ya waya. Yeah, they are talking about the wire day. Let's meet in the wire day. Sasa na hii huyu atakuja na pikipiki tuende nayo. Exactly. These are all.
Tukikutana na pikipiki hata tupeleke mimi na Sabela.
Are you sure? Unataka Sigana kupeleke na pikipiki? Atarudi kunichukua. Ama ulikuwa unataka kupeleke?
Tukiwa na Sabela.
Sasa atawakutana wapi, kwa njia? Okay, ni sawa. Lakini sasa mtamkutana labda Nyabuanse. Ama mnaona aje?
Sawa bwana, tomorrow is another day.
Tomorrow is another day. Okay. Asante sana bana. Yeah, my boys, they are here. These are the boys who are always having this kind of the job. Asante sana. No problem. Hata mi niweke tu huko nyumbani, si ndio? Exactly. Thank you very much. See you, Isabella. Exactly. Yes, hello. Nani? Sawa. So guys, they have now finished their work and they are now leaving. It's approximately, I don't have the time. Whenever you finish my work, you have to go. It's 15:08, and whenever you finish my work, you have to go any point, even if it's at 10 a.m., even if it's 6 in the evening. So I don't have the rate of talking about this, that specific. Whenever you have finished my work and we have agreed, this is the money I will give you. I don't have any kind of the things about, you have finished very quickly. No, I don't have that. And whenever my work is done very nicely, very correctly, I don't have any kind of the thing to talk about, this is a rude boss. I am a very sure better. And even that's why you see much of the people like me, and they have got what is necessary to them, and they can make it happen. And that's the fantastic module that I always prefer. And I talk about God has given me this kind of the opportunity to be this and serve whoever is necessary. So I'm now going to be looking for much money to buy this kind of defense. And after buying this kind of defense, I'm going to be looking for the best way for them to come, I think on this kind of the weekend, to come and hit the wire and make sure that this kind of an area is restricted. And I'm going to be putting their restriction aboard, talking about this area is protected with the aquaculture industry, which is that the Ministry of Agriculture, which is protecting this area, all the blue economy, which is protecting this kind of an area from any kind of the intruding. which is not allowed, and that will be the best way for us to go. And sometimes maybe we can just install some of the CCTV and some solar, and I'm gonna be building here an A-shaped one day one time. I have so many trees here. Some of them are one of the plot that is very here, which is bringing much of the shenanigans to the village here. Much of the people are talking about, oh, this kind of the land I could be very best because it's exposing, it's just showing much of the people to my compound. I don't have that. And if I talk about going to be not selling the land, I cannot do it, because the land is what we have to achieve and get to our position. That's the best way for me to talk about at this kind of the time. So as far as everything is in concern, and it's gonna be raining, because I've said whenever I was shooting their video, it was a bit like it was so sunny, but right now it's a bit calm, and already it's gonna be raining. It's now forming itself, and we understand the condition whenever it's gonna be coming, and talking about this is the condition where the time is so limited for us to go a little bit here. Some of like 20 minutes from now it's gonna be raining cats and dogs, and that's what I can talk about. Let's press it and let's go forward for it. And I appreciate much of the people tuned, locked in, subscribing, liking and sharing, which is the best way for us to go, and supporting Gintu and talking about Gintu. We have to go forward, and the forwardness is what we need at this kind of the time. And it's Ernesto here a bit, and guys, to Ernesto, I've already finished the job, and it's only like they have so many shenanigans there, and I don't know why they tend to happen, and that's something which is a bit confusing to me, and I don't know how I can just deal with it sometimes, because I think I left much of the cements there, and I've seen a bit they're now talking about, oh, they have finished the work, oh, these are mine, these are whatever, or a person who was maybe Ernesto was having his own death, they're talking about, oh, this the cement, I'm gonna be taking it, oh, too much things that I don't want to acknowledge at this kind of the time. But I understand it's one of at the position we can talk about. Everything has to go forward, and we pressurize it and get to the next step. But for the people who are talking about, oh, Git, we're going to be supporting you to make it happen. We are ever for it, and we are ever getting forward for it. Small, small, and we can feel a bigger drum. In a small, small portion, everything can just be occupied more self. And that is the way I always prompt myself, and I say, if we struggle at this kind of the time, I have everything, the assets are there, for the materials are there, we can achieve the best. And achieving the best is for us to determine and also make sure that we are getting, like right now, I'm so busy, so busy. I'm gonna be buying tiles, I'm fencing the land, I am still in the construction of the G Castle, I'm having so many things, the farms there. You understand, guys, I bought one of the cows, and I'm gonna be finishing from this kind of the fish farm here. I bought one of the cow from much of the people who understand, I bought a cow which is a Jersey cow from Eldoret. That cow, it's not tending to eat this kind of the napier grass that is formulated from this African here. Talk about from this kind of the zone, the horizon we are here. So I have already purchased grass from Eldoret, which is so expensive, and appreciate to Max the vet. And appreciate him because he's the one who is in Eldoret right now. I think he's in Mombasa right now, and he has achieved the best to make sure we're going to be sending much of the grass, ordering much of the grass from Eldoret. He has made it happen. I've already got it, and I've already planted it. Today I'm going to be showing you for this kind of the video what I'm making and what I'm coming up with to make sure that everything is getting forward. I said one day one time I'll host agricultural show at my home. I have that legacy. If not that, I represent in the national television one day, representing the people of the village and talking about we can make it happen. Let's have it. Guys, back to my home here, and I'm gonna be sorting much of the things how they come. And as I promised to talk about my cow had to purchase much of we call it the napier grass from Eldoret. Several kilometers, and we had to ship it from there to make sure that it's gonna be consuming what is consumable. And at that rate, I want to be making sure I'm gonna be producing a lot of grass, and I'll be selling also because it's one of the uniquest grass that is here. Much of the people find it's very difficult for them to go and purchase. You understand, it's like a business oriented moment, and a business oriented way, in a way like I have to suppress much much of the market also. If it will be so fantastic or good enough, because it's an improved grass that it's gonna be developed from here. It's like in the previous time, my father was the first person to bring this kind of the sukuma wiki, we call it the collards. They brought the ones that are gonna be using the suckers. You insert a suckers inside a soil and it will just develop, and it will be just a bigger kale, and some people could just talk about, oh, give me this kind of the new species that is in town, ABCD, such kind of the things. And also they are so improved, and they got such kind of much of the people, and it has already diversifyly going to be getting much of its own roots inside here. And at this kind of the time again, I'm bringing this kind of the napier grass back to this kind of an area. This is how it is, and we have already planted some of the splits, or not talk about the split, talk about the cuttings. We have already cut this kind of the grasses, as you can see, and we have inserted them necessary. We have drilled a hole, and we can just insert it inside to make sure that whenever it's gonna be raining, it needs much of the rain also, because the rainy season it will just develop more fantastic, to make sure that we're gonna be getting sustainable grass at this kind of the moment. I brought much. I talk about like 3 sacks, and it has reached this kind of the course of that far end, but it has not completed. So again, I'm going to be ordering for more to come, to make sure that we're going to be sustaining the sustainability of this kind of an area. Also have this kind of the farm down here that also going to be coming to have such kind of the grass. I want to be having a lot of sand and a lot of this kind of the napier grass, and I've planted it alongside the line, the lean up to the far end, in a way like it has created a space whereby a wheelbarrow can pass through, and the river, whatever is necessary, like manure, and talk about the fresh manure from the compost pit, also the fresh cow dung from the zero grazing. And right now I'm going to be using the silage, not the silage, it's called the biogas, in terms of the slurry that are going to be coming out of the biogas. I'll be using it because it will be already decomposed, and that's why you see I'm developing this kind of the farm, a contour, in a way like it's going to be planted like a contour way, to make sure that I'm going to be suppressing it with a lot of the manure that is so sufficient, like from the biogas, also supplying it to this kind of the farm. It's one of the reproductive system that we're going to be developing, and my father had also launched this kind of the farming, to make sure that we're going to be getting it more fantastic and enabling us to go forward. If somebody going to be needing me to talk about, oh, I need this kind of the cuttings, or I need some splits from here, I'm going to be making sure I'm going to be also selling, which is like a marketing zone. And if I planted it onto the coastlines like the way it is, it will just generate much of the people to say about, oh, Ginto, I like this kind of the way you have planted it, or it's so fine whenever you have planted it this way. And I want to be sustaining the sustainabilities of my cows at my home, to make sure that there's nothing will ever hinder us not to move, and also production of the milk, which is the quality milk that is sufficient to our home. That is my aim to go forward, because I can also get myself to involve in something that I know it will develop me, it will develop the environment, and also it will change the narrative that we also have, and we have to equip ourselves with the alternative means that will equip us best moving. That's what I always venture into, and that is the way forward. We have to do it. So from that kind of the area, you understand the grass that we also have. This one doesn't have this kind of the nature or the characteristic of the napier grass. Whenever you touch the leaves, they have really like structures. Talk about the ones that they can even attach to your clothes, and also attach to a skin, and brings much of like we can talk about small like you can even find like you are scratching yourself because of that kind of the nature that is produced with the grass. Somebody can just understand what I always mean here. It has some of the characteristics. When this is the napier grass, it has much of the characteristic of some of the stuffs that can attach. Whenever it's so big and you want to cut it, it has such kind of the characters. But the one that I've already brought here, it is like maize. So it sprouts very big. It has big leaves, and that's that's what we're gonna be subjecting ourselves into. It's the same as the one that is here, but in a different species, in a way that it's gonna be producing a lot of milk. And also the cow that I'm gonna be having here, this cow has a tendency not to adjust to this kind of the environment using this kind of the napier grass we're gonna be using here. But the good thing is, let me develop the grass that where I got it from, because it's not even eating some kales. And if you give kales to this kind of the animals we are having here, they tend to eat like something else. But this kind of the Jersey cow that I bought from Eldoret, it doesn't consume such kind of the kales, and that is what I talk about. They have a different tendency. Back to the G Castle here. Today the skimming guy didn't want to attend, and it's a bit of you understand some of the burial ceremonies and much more, and have already understood it, how it comes, because this is the best moment that we're going to be getting forward. You can now see how it's now reflecting, so whitish, and it looks like we are in the palace, the palace format, exactly. So getting inside, they're now completing, talk about the gypsuming to the top of the gypsum ceiling board, and after completing it, we shall now be launching the starting of the tiling, because it's only the gypsum that's remaining, then the tiling, and after the tiling we're going to be having the painting. Before the painting, we're going to be making sure that we're going to be fixing the accessories like the switch, the sockets, and the lightings. Then it's going to be now furnished with much of the paints. After the paints, now we're going to be talking about how we're going to be building the kitchen layouts and much more now, and the windows that are going to be coming, like aluminium windows going to be attending here. So the work continues still in the evening section, and they're here to make sure that even this kind of the corridor looks so neat, and it has a running light or the snake light inside here, which is the best way for us to go. Also from this kind of the panel, I think it's tomorrow going to be coming to launch this kind of the new flower that's going to be developed here. And they have already finished this kind of the snake light zone to make sure that it doesn't be affected with any kind of the matters here. So also talk about this kind of the bedroom. This doesn't have any kind of we can call about the flowers. It's already good to go because it's ready right now. It's only skimming, second skimming, to make sure they're going to be so fantastic and so vigilant in a way that you're going to be now getting some of the lighting system to be placed here. So even this kind of the room here, it's just waiting for the tiles and also a window, and it will be just complete for a person to stay and make sure that it's only a bed and everything will just move forward. Because electricity, we have it here. It's only a little bit of a section that we're going to be doing here, fixing some of the stuffs here, and also the house will be running so carefragistically very nice here. And also this is the master bedroom also. They finished this kind of the skimming all this kind of the time. Talk about this kind of the side was not skimmed a bit, so they have already skimmed it. So they're going to be finishing now with this kind of we can call it the flowers that are going to be developed here. And after developing the flower, we're going to be in a position to talk about it's now some of the windows and some tiles and some paints to make sure that the G Castle or the master bedroom is ready. Even the tiling, we're going to be start from here, talk about this kind of the bedroom, and this is where we're going to be starting from. And this bedroom, and to the further point, it's going to be taking like a little bit of 35, which is the sitting room. We're going to be taking 27 tiles because they're 40 by 40. Kitchen going to be taking 7, which is 40 by 40. This kind of the bedroom there, it's going to be taking less, not much, because the ones that I'm having here, they can just tend to complete this kind of the bedroom number 1 with its own course, and also bedroom number 2 and number 3. So I'm going to be developing myself and also getting myself attached to purchase more so that I can just finish this kind of the sitting. This sitting room can accommodate up to 27 tiles, boxes of tiles, to making sure that it's going to be like 323 tiles that are going to be in this kind of the room. And the kitchen one going to be holding 7 boxes, which is a one box going to be comprising of 12 of the tiles that are going to be in one box there. So the G Castle is now getting forward, and the skimming is now remaining in a small bit only. And after now the skimming, we shall now know how the tiling system is going. So this is just a small update about what's going to be coming up, and also handling much of the matters, how they arise and how they come to this kind of the position here. So I like much of the people tuned, locked in, supporting, subscribing, liking and sharing, because this is the fantastic module we're going to be doing, and also attaching ourselves and talking about going forward always. For the people who ever tuned and representing Hello Internet, keep it tuned. I'm going to be back to you in much on the more that's going to be developing the nation and also making it to the far point. And this is the way forward. Let's go with it beyond explanation. This is the end.